Good morning. Today is Sunday, October 24th. Let us set our intention and aspirations by saying the four immeasurable prayer. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings not be separated from the happiness that has never known suffering. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment, anger, and aversion. I think we have some couple of new people, so I want to do a brief review. You know, for those of you who have been doing this a lot, and feel like a review is annoying. You know, listen, it's always good. This is the foundation of the practice. No spiritual progress is going to happen without meditation, without looking at our mind and working with our mind. So, if I can keep going over the basics and the technique, so can you. It's certainly always valuable. Let's start with the 9 purifying breaths. For those of you who are new, the 9 purifying breaths work with the subtle energetic channels in the body, of which there are 3 main ones. Like Victoria says, we're not simply meat bags as human beings. You know, there's other. You know, there is definitely some subtle energies going on that connect us to everything else. You know. The central channel is blue. In men, traditionally, the right side is white and the left side is red. But we don't have to be traditional. We can define express our gender and express how we want to configure this in terms of how we want to, okay? If you choose to put the white on the right or the red on the left or vice versa, however you want to do that is fine. The 3 subtle body channels correspond to the 3 poisons, and the liberated, that poisonous energy, when it's liberated, have enlightened qualities, right? So if we deal with the right, which is where we're going to breathe in and breathe out first, for me, the white is the right side. And that's where the anger lies. But when the anger is liberated, that's where patience is, right? The left side is red. That's where like attachment, like greed and lust and things like that. When that is liberated, there's patience and kindness, compassion. And the center channel deals with ignorance toward the nature of things and the nature of reality and truth, basically, which corresponds to the view of Buddhism, which deals with impermanence, interdependence, non-duality, right? So ignorance is the negative side, and when that's liberated, it's wisdom. So we're going to take our right finger and then tuck the thumb into the fist. And we're going to go to the opposite side. We're going to breathe in through the right, go into that right channel, be it red or white. Breathe in that enlightened air. Switch and breathe out of that same channel. Breathe out that anger or breathe out that attachment. While you're doing it, envision these channels here. Envision them there. They go from right below the navel all the way to the crown, and the 3 of them join. The 2 outside ones go into that blue one right at the navel. Let's do that again. So right to the left. One more. Breathe out that anger or that attachment, that greed or clinging attachment, lust or whatever that is. jealousy. Now we go to the opposite. We're going to take the left finger, tuck it into the fist, and go to the right nostril. We're breathing into this left channel. In me, it's red. That's that attachment one, that sticky attachment, that grasping attachment. Breathe in. That contentment and kindness, openness, and breathe out that attachment. And again, breathe it out. That could be addiction as well, that attachment. Breathe in that release from those bonds of grasping, compulsion, addiction, all those things. Breathe it out. Now we'll move to the central channel. We'll use both nostrils to breathe into that blue channel. All the way down to the navel, or all the channels meet. You're breathing in wisdom and you're breathing out ignorance, separation from the knowledge of the view, non-duality, impermanence, interdependence. Emptiness, shunyata, most importantly. Breathe in that wisdom, the embodiment of that view. Breathe it out. Ignorance. The last one we're going to hold, and then we're going to almost eject our consciousness through the crown and merge it with space. So you're merging your inner consciousness with the outer. So a forceful breath out. And we'll go into meditation. We're going to go into 11 minutes of meditation. I'm going to talk through the basic instructions while we start. Those of you who have done this, just go right into it. Those of you who are new and need some review, go in. Follow me for the review. Cross-legged, whatever's comfortable. It could be like this. It could be like this if you're flexible. Don't be concerned with doing anything correctly. Just be comfortable first. Cushion. I use a cushion just to get the hips even or above the knees. If you need a chair because of physical limitations, you can do that, but make sure your hips are even or above your knees and your feet are flat on the floor. Spine is upright but relaxed. Shoulders are back. Arms, usually you can put either on your knees. Some people like this ring finger with the thumb. I like this palm to the back of the hand, resting in the lap. Those of you who have done this, you should be hearing me, but working with your breath and meditating. Shoulders back, but not pushed back, just relaxed, upright. You want to be upright so these subtle body channels can, flow without impediment, right? Chin slightly down, lips closed but teeth apart. Tongue can rest where the back of the top teeth meet the roof of the mouth. Eyes open in the Tibetan tradition, but not spaced out and not locked in some intense gaze, just kind of relaxed, looking at whatever's in front of you. And the breath. We don't do a deep breath, we don't do a shallow breath, we do a relaxed, normal breath, and we try to do it just through the nose unless you can't, and do what you can using the mouth as well. Just let everything settle, physically and mentally first. Like, now focus on the breath, the place where the nostril meets the top of the lip. Focus on the breath going in and out of there. Just put your attention there. And what is going to happen is that you're going to start to think, because that's what the mind does. It's one aspect of the mind, that it thinks. That's not wrong, that's not incorrect, that's not a fact. failure. That's just what it does. That's why we're here. That's exactly why we're here, is to start to work with this. The whole key to practice, and we say it over and over again here, is awareness, becoming aware of what your mind is doing. So you're in the posture, you're relaxed, you're breathing, you're focusing on your breath. I am thinking about a call I need to make at 12 o'clock. Now, instead of the normal chain of thought that starts when a thought arises, which is 12 o'clock, where am I going to make that call from? I need to be somewhere quiet. Maybe I should go outside. Maybe I should go in the park to do this call because people are in my, that's basically the default mechanism that's been going on in our minds for countless lifetimes and eons. If you don't believe in reincarnation, that's been going on your entire life. What we're going to do is become aware of the thought and leave it where it is. Don't follow it. Don't reject it, push it away. This is wrong, this is bad. Just leave it where it is, like you're lightly just touching it. We also use the visualization of the mind being this limitless, stainless, clear blue sky, and the thought being like a cloud that arises from the sky and dissolves back into it. So like I said, I'm aware of this call I have to make at 12 o'clock. I leave it where it is, and I almost imagine that as this cloud dissipating back into that clarity of sky, mind, and then relax in that clarity. Let your body and mind just sit there. Let that clarity come for you. That's the nature of your mind. Because the thoughts are always different, right? Day to day, hour by hour, moment by moment. They can be about a myriad of different things. Positive, negative, loving, hatred, hateful, all kinds of stuff. We're not saying thought is bad. Thought is necessary. We're practicing meditation. We're working on our awareness. So the thoughts always change. The thoughts are always different. I mean, some recur and are repetitive, but a lot of them, throughout the course of the day, you'll have thousands of different thoughts. But what you'll learn when you practice this is that when you work with your thought and let it go and it dissipates on its own, what is always the same is mind and that clarity and calm and emptiness. And by emptiness, we mean uncompounded, right? All phenomena are compounded, right? They're made up of, they're different causes and conditions, but the mind is not. There's nothing there. It is made up. It just is. It just exists on its own. That clarity is just there, and it's always there, no matter what is going on in our mind. Thoughts are compounded by karma and by things going on, causes and conditions in our life. The mind is not. The mind is like space. There's no beginning to it. There's no end to it. There's no composition to it. And that's always there with you. So let's settle in and meditate now. Don't be frustrated, afraid, or annoyed by the thought. Just be aware of it. It is also said the mind, besides being uncompounded, emptiness, right, limitless, is also luminous, which means even though it's space-like, it's not a void. There's an awareness to it. There's a luminosity a luminosity of awareness, if that makes sense, that is inherent in the mind. It's not just dead. So when you become aware of the thought, if you're not using that technique of the cloud, just go back to the breath. Make that like your mantra, back to the breath. So you're breathing, relaxed. You hear something outside. Oh, that's my neighbor hammering something on a Saturday. Back to the breath. So notice what I did. I didn't judge the thought. I shouldn't be thinking. It's bad that I'm thinking. I need to think. I need to figure out how to deal with this. Back to the breath. Go. The attention goes back. A cloud that arises in the sky does not affect the sky at all. Once it dissipates, it'll go back and disappear. And we use the analogy of the clouds for the thoughts, and we use the analogy of storms for emotions, and emotions almost being super powered thoughts that have more physical energy. But the same way they arise in the mind and disappear back into the mind, like a storm. When a storm is gone, it's gone. Back to the breath. Back to the breath. Enjoy that natural great peace, those moments when you do catch those moments between thoughts. Enjoy it, settle in it. That's yours. It really is. Okay, I want to do another meditation a session today, so we will do it again. When you first start to do this, you're going to become aware of just how busy your mind is and how many thoughts there are, and it can be very kind of overwhelming and feel like an impossibility and stuff. But that's the human condition. Everyone I know says the same thing. My mind is really busy, and I've tried to meditate and I can't, or I don't think I can because my mind is. Everyone thinks their mind is busier than everybody else. Everybody's mind is busy. Mind is busy. That's what it does. You are not more unique than anybody else. Trust me. Everybody has the same mind. That's why there's the practice of meditation. And anyone, well, there are people who are probably born already spiritually advanced from different lifetimes, but that's a different story. Everyone, who wants to be on this path has to meditate. It just does not happen without this kind of work. I want to read something. Okay. This is by one of the great lamas of 20th century. It's Tibetan Buddhist teacher. Uh, Garchen Rinpoche was actually was a grandfather of Zonsar Kensei Rinpoche. The force that keeps us alive is as impermanent as a bubble in a stream. It is as delicate as a dewdrop on the tip of a blade of grass. Life is like a candle in the wind. There are so many causes for dying, and so few for staying alive. Our lives are as brief as a flash of lightning in the clouds. As we find in the jewel garland, we live amid the lords that cause our death like a lamp set in the middle of a dust storm. With all its many risks, this life endures no more than wind-blown bubbles in a stream. How marvelous to breathe in and out again, to fall asleep and then awake refreshed. The causes of death are numerous, and this shows how extremely fragile we are. It is something of a miracle that one can wake up without dying in one's sleep, and that one does not die in the interval between breathing out and breathing in again. It is just as if one were carrying a guttering lamp on a site blasted by gales. There is no knowing from one minute to the next when it will go out. There is no time to take things easy and to think I'll practice the Dharma later. So rather than putting it off until next year, practice this year. Rather than putting it off until next month, practice this month. Rather than putting it off until tomorrow, practice today. Life is like water poured into one's cupped hands and trickling out between one's finger. Without one's knowing, it has all run out. As today, likewise, those who think as today, likewise tomorrow, who are attached to wealth and prosperity are like a pair of cupped hands full of water, leaking imperceptibly. In the way of the Bodhisattva, which is by Shanti Deva, we read, never halting night or day, my life drains constantly away, and from no other source does increase come. In the beginning, when we were young, we were being immature, we did not practice Dharma. At the end, when we are old, though people might say it's a good time to practice Dharma, we will be physically and mentally depleted and unable to make any progress. And in the half of our lives in between, we are overtaken by sleep. Moreover, we are overwhelmed by all sorts of pointless distractions, whether we are sitting or moving around, and we therefore scarcely have any opportunity to practice the Dharma. So develop the certainty that all the tantalizing enjoyments of this life are devoid of essence, like the happiness experienced in a single dream, and put all your efforts into accomplishing the sublime Dharma. Now, one can take that as being kind of depressing or whatever, but it's also it should be seen as inspiration for practice. Think about it. It is true, and our time here is very limited and very fleeting, and as you get older, you see that more and more clearly. One of you wrote in last week, and talked about having cancer, and we spoke a little bit about it. There was one thing I did not say that's really, really, really important and very difficult to hear, but when we do go through illness like that, and suffer through things like that, have faith that that's also basically burning off negative karma created in the past, either in this life or maybe in others, prior ones. Almost as if, because karma does manifest in physical ways like that. And it may not be anything you're aware of. It may not be anything that was done in this life, or causes and conditions that were created. They could be causes and conditions that were created in past life. But know that when we go through difficulties, when we suffer, one aspect of that is that we are liberating negative karma from the past. So I didn't say that, and it was very important, and I'm sorry I did not bring that up last week, but it should have been addressed. I'm going to take a couple of questions, then read more, and we're going to meditate again. Uh, After we took Bodhisattva vows, I think you mentioned some phrases to say morning and evening. You could say, you could say something like, until samsara is empty, I will bring benefit to all beings who have been my mother. All beings who have been my mother means all beings, because, as we say, limitless time, limitless lives, mathematically, if you will, all beings at one time or another have been our mothers. Mothers is sometimes tricky because some people have very toxic relationships with their own mother. So you can substitute anyone who has shown you a lot of love, right? And basically you're saying that until all beings are enlightened, as long as space and time endures, you will work to bring benefit to other beings. A simple acknowledgement of the thought and let it go, so it no longer can concern or have hold of you. A simple acknowledgement of the thought and leaving it where it is. That's what we're doing. Don't take it to the next phrase you say, so it no longer can concern or have hold of you. Don't even worry about that. Just worry about acknowledging that you're thinking. Not even acknowledging the thought as much as acknowledging the mind is thinking. So you're almost like leaving the thought as this neutral thing, no matter how it's charged emotionally. You know what I mean? No matter what the story of the thought is. It's thought, period. You know what I mean? Often we get caught up in the story, and that's what we're trying to work with here in meditation, you know. Over the last week or so, whenever I had anxiety or panic attacks, instead of just wishing it would end, I instead turned my thoughts to the relief of suffering for any being going through it at the moment. I think that I may be on the right path with this thought process. Agree? Yes, I totally agree. Yes, George. I mean, obviously, if you're diagnosed with anxiety or panic attacks, you may need care, professional care, sometimes even medication or something like that. I'm not saying not to explore those options, which certainly they should be if needed, But if not, yes, exactly that. Turn your thoughts to the relief of suffering for any beings. I mean, we had a class on Tonglen that Victoria taught. That's in our YouTube. It's archived in the YouTube, and that's very valuable. So, in a very simple method is you see someone, say you're walking down the street, you see a homeless person, you know, and you can buy food or offer money or something like that. But you can also, um, if it's a situation where you can't engage, right? What you could do is you breathe in their suffering almost, right? Literally, in a way, like we do in this practice. You breathe it in and you take it into your heart, and you imagine you're taking in this black suffering and your heart into your heart, and it becomes black and then immediately transform into crystal by by the power of your awareness and your intention. That blackness becomes crystal, and then you breathe out that crystal, you know kind of kindness and love and whatever that is to you towards that person. I mean, and that's a really good practice to habituate, because it's you don't have to engage, you don't have to talk to the person, you don't have to engage with the person, because sometimes we're not always able to. Sometimes it's a little bit too, it's not proper, or it's not right for the situation. But and instead of just having pity, which doesn't you're more working with a compassionate energy, and something active. And if we acknowledge the view of Buddhism about interconnectedness, then that's not just some kind of empty gesture or something that's good for you, that there's a reality to that and a truth to that exchange. I was watching the news and they covered the accidental shooting that Alec Baldwin was involved in. I feel heartbreak for all involved. And I wonder what the Buddha might say to someone who accidentally caused the death of another human being. Um, listen, you in Buddhist view, everything is fruition of karma, right? Karma is not some cosmic judge that, punishes and, punishes and rewards. It's more about causes and conditions that arise according to someone's where someone is at in the moment in their spiritual development, where they are in their life. Whatever happened between these people was a result of causes and conditions, like I said, through this life, created in this life and many past lives. It's impossible, unless you're an enlightened being, to see how this happened, right? To understand the karmic causes and conditions that went into effect to cause something like this. I happen to know Alec, and I know that he's suffering a lot, unimaginably, as is the family of the victims, especially the husband and the son and the family of the woman who was killed. Obviously, in Buddhism, not obviously, but in Buddhism, rather than everything being about right, wrong, yes, no, do this, don't do that, you can't do this, you can do this, much of Buddhism relies on intention. When we start the class, we make aspirations and intentions towards to be a benefit of all beings, Obviously, the taking of a life, there's a heavy karmic karma at work in this situation, unimaginably heavy. But it was not Alec's intention to kill that person. It was his karma to be in this situation. That's not putting any blame. That's not putting any judgment. It is what it is. It happened. There were some causes and conditions that led up to, him being on that set, being in that movie, having that thing given to him. We're not talking about blame. His intention was not. If his intention was to murder that person, that's a whole different level of karma that he's creating through that situation. Please suggest first book to read. I always recommend The Art of Happiness by the Dalai Lama. That's a good one. What made you get into meditating? A feeling of dissatisfaction with where I was at in my life. How long can and should one meditate, especially with such a busy life? I don't think length of meditation is as important as regularity of meditation. In the beginning, I think short, regular sessions are best. I think the best thing is not about how long, but how well you can incorporate it into your daily routine. With everyday thoughts that pop in the mind, should I naturally use the method of keeping the thought there? Like I said, we need thought, we need our attention to do things. If you're at work, you're not just gonna, you have to be engaged. You have to put your, focus on things that you're doing. But as an exercise, yeah, if you're walking down the street, you can work on meditation. I would not substitute. There's a thing called walking meditation, but I would not substitute that for sitting meditation, because often that just becomes taking a walk and not meditating. But you can use it as an exercise. In any situation, check in. What's the mind doing? Is it just busyness? Is it judgment? Is it, you'll be surprised to see how, once you start really checking in, how much of your condition to, our little habits. I judge this person's wearing this type of clothes. This person's, has this kind of face and it makes me think this. This person's fat, this person's skinny, this person's old, this person's ugly, whatever. It's endless. But it is good, yeah. You know, it's cultivating awareness, mindful awareness. You know, and when you cultivate mindful awareness, a lot can start to happen. And when you cultivate mindful awareness, and begin to cultivate bodhicitta, which is the next thing we're going to talk about, or at least compassion at first, and you start to study the Dharma, even more can happen. You can actually transform, you can actually transform who you are and how you interact with the world and how you interact with other people. That's basically where the spiritual path is. When you meet someone who's spiritually advanced, it's a very palpable presence. Someone who really, the people that I met who are, high lamas, or people who have really, spent a lot of time in this life or in many lives, prior, practicing Dharma and compassion and embodying these teachings. It's just the presence is there, I'm going to read something else because now we're on it here. Many people in this world are kind. Jigme Lingpa tells us he met umpteen kind people during his life, but adds that very few had any idea about what the bodhicitta of aspiration and application really are. As we have already seen, to take refuge is the foundation of the path to liberation. Taking refuge means really become a Buddhist. You're taking refuge in the Buddha, and your teacher, in the teachings, the Dharma, and in the Sangha, the community of other Buddhists. After taking refuge, next we arouse bodhicitta. What is bodhicitta? In very general terms, bodhicitta is the wish to bring all sentient beings to complete enlightenment. This corresponds to the bodhisattva vow we took 2 weeks ago, I think, or 3 weeks ago. It is the heart, head, eyes, blood, and spine of the Mahayana path, and an absolutely indispensable practice. In fact, it is such a powerful idea that just to value the wish to transmit the wisdom that is enlightenment to others is one of the most immense offerings it is possible to make. All too often, though, even so-called Buddhists misunderstand bodhicitta and reduce it to little more than compassionate loving kindness. Love, compassion, and wanting to make people happy are very popular ideals and are often promoted as bodhicitta's most important feature. We forget that without bodhicitta, there would be no Mahayana or Vajrayana Buddhism, and that the most crucial aspects of both of these is the understanding of shunyata, emptiness, the view, non-duality, impermanence, interdependence. They go together. Compassion and emptiness. With the wisdom of compassion, that central blue channel, the negative quality where the ignorance stays, the enlightened quality is wisdom, understanding the truth. Without wisdom, compassion alone is not bodhicitta, and vice versa. Without bodhicitta, wisdom alone is not bodhicitta. Both qualities are essential. Zansa Khyentse Rinpoche said, wisdom is in the driver's seat, compassion is in the passenger seat, and ethics are in the back seat. That's how he put it. I thought it was very interesting. Most Buddhists are aware that bodhicitta has something to do with tolerance, thoughtfulness, and charitable endeavor, but rarely notice the very large part that deals with the wisdom that understands non-duality or emptiness. Because often then it can just become this pity, which can have an element of condescension, even the most altruistic or philanthropic intentions often can have that separation. I'm doing for this one. I'm fortunate this person isn't. Whereas the wisdom that understands non-duality is saying there's no separation between me and that person. There's no giver and no taker in ultimate sense of reality. I am not doing this compassion. This is. It's a different thing. And it takes a long time and a lot of work to start to really realize this and embody this. Sogyo Rinpoche, who passed away a couple of years ago, was a great Buddhist teacher, said, well, he was talking more about compassion, but it's really about bodhicitta. It's not, it's respect. He was talking more about compassion, you know. But that kind of turned my mind a little bit when I heard that. Rather than just, I feel for you, you know, that kind of, often, you know, compassion is often pity. Because we're separating the self and other, you know. Zan Sarkensi says, wisdom is in the driver's seat. What are we talking about when we talk about wisdom? We're talking about emptiness, non-duality, the view of Buddhism, interdependence, no separation. That's ultimate reality. And if you think in terms of physical science, physics, right? The whole physical material world is one big energy field. It's not different people, different things like that. If you really start, if you take it in some kind of hyper electron microscopic level, there isn't separation, and there isn't even essence. There's particles that break down into waves that break down into nothing, things that are just ineffable. Ineffable as ineffable oneness, though, not ineffable separateness. Without a comprehensive appreciation of bodhicitta, all Buddhist practice degenerates into spiritual materialism because it lacks the one essential component that brings the path so radiantly alive, bodhicitta. Spiritual materialism, there's a great book called Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism by Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche. According to Karma Chagme Rinpoche, the only way to transform unvirtuous negative thoughts and actions into those that are beneficial thoughts and actions is through bodhicitta. To make it possible to generate bodhicitta, we must first create certain causes and conditions. This is great. To make it possible to generate bodhicitta, we must first create certain causes and conditions, namely take refuge, arouse compassion, and accumulate merit. This is also why we dedicate at the end of class. We dedicate the merit, because by doing this kind of activity, meditating and studying Buddha Dharma, you create merit. But it's not for you. You dedicate it to the benefit of all beings, because wisdom and the truth, ultimate truth and nature of things, all beings is one being. Now that's a very hard thing to just live out of and embody. But if it is the ultimate nature of reality, we have to begin to somehow taste that, touch that. For a very thorough and precise explanation of why bodhicitta is so crucial for a Buddhist practitioner, read the book, The Way of the Bodhisattva, or the Bodhisattva, it's called the Bodhicharyavatara, The Way of the Bodhisattva by Shanti Deva. This quote I just read was from Zonsar Khyentse Rinpoche and his book, Not for Happiness, which is a great book. Can someone meditate several times a day? Yes, you can. I like to do it in the morning, and then I don't always do it every night, but before bed is really helps me sleep better. I'll be honest with you. Okay. Julie says, I'm the one with cancer. Thank you for addressing liberating karma. I'm open to receiving that. I'm keeping my mind wide open as I navigate this challenging time. I'm seeing this as a path to healing instead of a fight to beat this. Classic cancer language that just doesn't sit right with me. I'm doing all that I can for my well-being. Yeah, yeah, that's very brave and very wise, Julie, and thank you for sharing that. So is the karma through Buddhism like everything happens for a reason? Not for a reason, because of a reason, because of causes and conditions. If you want to look at what your previous life is, look at your situation right now. If you want to look at what your future karma is, look at what you're doing right now. If that makes sense. Does food affect it? How much water? I don't know. I mean, food and water, just in general health. I mean, if you're going to eat really bad food and not take care of yourself, it's going to be harder for you to, you need to be of sound body and mind, I think, to practice anything. Would Tonglen breathing be a good exercise for things such as tragic deaths and the people involved? They could be. There's other practices. There's POA practice. If you go to the Rigpa website, there's a practice of POA that you might want to investigate. Rigpa.org. But sure, Tonglen you can. I have a friend caught up in some toxicity, thoughts and behaviors. I want to help her but not preach. Do I benefit most with my intention, breathing in the suffering of others, as you mentioned? Yes, intention. Also, if you're in their life as an example, because you're practicing, that may inspire her as well. And if you can do stuff, if you can offer advice or can help, we try. Thank you for the answer on the accidental shooting. Karma is a huge topic that I struggle to understand, but this gives me some context to think about it. Yeah, it's people have you have to understand karma, in the way we're talking about it here. You have to really uh, believe in past lives. But again, reincarnation is tricky because we also Buddhists don't believe in the concept of a self. That the self is kind of this cobbled together thing of labels and condition, and it's like how we perceive ourselves. Like I'm Michael, who's an actor who lives in New York. These are not essential natural things. You know what I mean? So much of ourself is created by our mind and our environment and how it's not a real solid thing that continues. So to what is reincarnated? If it's not the self, then what is it? Right? It happens on a much more subtle energetic level. Similar to think of the subtle channels that we're dealing with that are not the subtle energetic channels are not Michael or Rachel. You know what I mean? They're much more abstract than that, if you will. Okay, we're going to meditate again. Thank you for your questions. I'm going to not talk during this meditation, and let's do 7 minutes right now. Okay. I lied. I will talk. You become aware of the thought, leave it where it is, back to the breath, back to the image of sky. That's, you're going to repeat that process over and over again. Do not think that you do it once and then the rest of the 7 minutes is going to be just sitting in the nature of mind. That's not how it works. Just get used to repeating that process. Even if you do it 100 times in 5 minutes, it's great. Just the fact that you're committing to this practice is great. Let go of the result. Okay. I just want to speak on karma just for a few more minutes. This is something people really always have a lot of questions about. Karma is not destiny. It's not predetermined things happening. It's cause and effect. Think of the fact that you're doing this meditation class. Think of the causes and conditions, both from my point of view, Nick Solidio, our producer's point of view, and yours. What are the causes and conditions that brought us together to today, Sunday, October 24th, practicing Dharma together, meditating together, and dedicating that merit to the benefit of all beings? Think of the causes and conditions that went into that, right? So most of you found out about this class through Instagram, where you may perhaps followed me because you saw me on TV. So the fact that I did a TV show, was an actor, was a series of causes and conditions that led me to go on Instagram and promote Buddhist classes that you followed because you watched this on TV and now today are studying Buddha Dharma and meditation in the present, in this moment right now. Think of those causes and conditions. It's not just there's actually nothing random if you think about it. Even think of like a meteor, right? If it falls from the sky and it lands on the earth, you think it's just landing randomly. Well, it's actually not. It depends on the energy that this thing had sailing through the sky, when that energy started to whatever deplete because it was sinking, or the course that it's on related to the revolution of the earth and the orbit of the earth, and the heat and the temperature, which adjusts the speed, and where it's going to land is actually the result of very precise causes and conditions. You think about, if you accept the theory of the Big Bang and the theory of evolution, it's the same thing. There's nothing random about the fact that uh, if the Big Bang happened and there was this big explosion and matter kind of burning and cooling and forming and solidifying because of certain temperatures and revolutions and orbits, you know, that gave rise to whatever substance was created on the face of the earth and in the oceans, and the temperature and the exact distance from the sun that created causes and conditions for life to somehow emerge from this same matter, which Darwin said evolved into different species based on mutations and environmental conditions and survival factors. These are very, very, very precise causes and conditions. There's absolutely nothing random about that. So the takeaway from that is your actions, which usually come out of thought, have to be handled very precisely, because your karma, uh, the karma that you create from now, you have created karma in the past. The karma you create now is directly in your hands right now. The causes and conditions that you will give birth to are the result of how you're going to behave in this life, and you can choose to, you know, create negative, positive, or neutral karma. Right? The best is, of course, positive karma. So how do we do this? That's why we practice, you know, and creating positive karma for the benefit of all beings, not just for ourselves to have a comfortable, cushy, easy life, right? I don't know. I hope that's a little helpful. I have a few more minutes if you do. Okay. I'm not sure what's going to happen next week because I'm traveling, but we'll figure it out. Thank you for coming today. Thank you, Nick. Let's dedicate the merit from today's practice for the benefit of all beings. By this merit, may all beings attain the state of enlightenment and conquer the enemies of faults and delusions. May they be liberated from this ocean of samsara and its pounding waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. And when we say this, do not say this as just some kind of rote little platitude or just kind of formality. Really think that whatever merit was created, we can dedicate for the benefit of all beings. Remember, a drop of water in the ocean becomes the ocean. Think of it in that term. This dedication, a handful of us getting together, dedicating this merit for the benefit of all beings, which is immense and almost infinite, is real and does have an effect and is inseparable from that totality, and is that totality, oneness, which is the nature of reality. See you next week.